Okay, hello, back again, Stock's Fine Art. I want to continue this painting. We've gone from just the simple texturing of a canvas to just blocking in our scene. We've got a large barn here to the right, and we've just charcoaled it in and then put got some paint on there just to get it started. And I think usually what I like to do now is just put a general wash over the whole thing. You'll see it's first thing we just get rid of all the white canvas and get some tone on the canvas, and you'll see also it'll be very early in the process and not pretty raw, unpolished, but you'll see a little bit of atmosphere, that color going over everything. This will bleed through. It'll begin to create some feeling of depth. Now we go through a lot of different processes, layers to finish, but it's the beginning. And after that, I'll start putting in some darks. And so I always just get some, usually raw sienna, maybe some yellow ochre with it, and mix up a pretty large batch of that. And we're going to put quite a bit of water in it. We want to let this bleed through, so we don't want real thick color in there. And let's see, I'll just add some yellow with it. Yellow or yellow ochre's fine. So, had my microphone in a little bit the wrong spot. So, okay, I just want a large brush. At this point, just even a little small house painting brush. You just want to coat this first coat out. Here's one that's just an old simple nylon house painting brush. But let's mix up some water with this. Get it pretty thin down, and this will be our first part of the underpainting. This is how I consistently underpaint my acrylic landscapes. Just keep a consistency, and it's good to keep a consistency in your palette and your techniques, and you becomes part of the signature of what you do to have a consistency in your body of work. And so this not as thin as watercolor, but quite a bit of water in it. And now this first layer is going to be streaky, and we're going to do a lot of layers. And you can see this piece we're loosely modeling this after. We're going to end with a blue sky, but some of this will show through, create kind of a warmth in it. And really it's this layering that can produce depth in a painting. If you're not getting the depth you want, just simply beginning to put some underpainting, some layers on first that maybe have nothing to do with the final color scheme and color palette, but they add something underneath to it, and some interest and some depth. So let's just do a little more, and we're gonna, right now I'm just planning to do roughly 30-minute segments, and we will see what we can get done in those 30 minutes. And then just go to the next step on the next video. When I teach at Edmond Fine Art Institute or Norman Firehouse Art Center here in Oklahoma, I do 2-hour segments And it's usually several students though, so we usually take 2 or 3, sometimes 4 2-hour segments to get through a painting, because we talk about it quite a bit and work with individual students, and we don't really do something fast. We try to really break it down, and again, my niche is probably more with beginning students and some intermediate, and occasionally we'll get professional artists that just like to see how another artist operates, but I don't like to assume that everybody knows every step, and so I really break it down and just explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then we try to have a lot of fun with it too. That's art. It's you can make somewhat of a living at it, but a lot of it's for fun, and I don't think you ever want to lose that. So you can see here we're starting to see a little bit of like this, just this outline of this barn. It's like it's setting back. It's got some atmosphere on it, and this is just part of the underpainting, and we just go over it and create that somewhat deep look, like there's atmosphere over it, and it's going back in space. I could call it aerial perspective, I've heard. Now it's a little early yet. When I remove paint, I like to lift paint a lot too, just with a wet rag or paper towel or something. I usually want some color underneath. I don't particularly want to lift it with just the white underneath, but just to give you a little quick example, like there's a little bit of paint underneath here, so as it begins to dry, you can I'll do a little more. You see, it just creates it kind of enhances the texture a little bit, and like I said, it works a little better when you've got more color underneath, like the white. If you go too hard, you just take it right off, and so that's one reason I like to put a warm color underneath, and as I build it up with some blues, so in this case a bluish sky, and I lift some of that, it exposes some of the warmth, and just gives it a nice warmer feeling and a deeper look. And this is just part of the legwork of a painting. You've got to have some time involved with every painting. They don't all go super fast. You've got to put a little work ethic in it. And I started taking oil painting, or acrylic, here when I was like 10 years old. My mom got me in lessons because I could draw good, like a lot of people. I could just draw well as a kid. So I was interested in art and sports, and that was about it. And loved baseball and football, and this is Oklahoma, so you got the home of Mickey Mantle and Johnny Bench and all the great football players as well. So I loved art, I loved sports, and really loved sports more, but and I actually got my art degree at Central Oklahoma on a track scholarship. That's what I got my education paid for. I found out I wasn't a great sprinter. I was a big, tall, lanky end, and I would never win any 40-yard dashes. I wouldn't be last, but at the end, the coach would just say, "Then now go take a lap around the big practice field," and which was, I don't know, maybe half a mile or something. And I would take off at the same speed, and I would just kill everybody. I would be finished before they were, 3/4 through. And I always wondered why they were running so slow. I knew a lot of them were faster than I was, and I figured out finally they weren't running slow. I was running fast for that length of time, and so I decided in high school at Northwest Classen, high school of Skip Bayless and Rick Bayless and Vince Gill and a lot of other pretty cool people. Had a great high school, but anyway, decided I'd take some track and see what I could do, and I ended up making the all-state cross country and track team my senior year and got a scholarship. So I majored in commercial art actually, and funny, I really never got into commercial art. I just did the fine arts, and so that's a little bit about my background. Yeah, we all have interesting stories, don't we? About where we were, where we came from, and I call those my paint drying stories. Even though acrylic dries fast, there's always a minute or two you have to wait for it to dry. So I have try to have some sort of a story to fall back on. Maybe it's not so interesting. I don't know. Probably isn't. So anyway, this I usually use 16 by 20 canvases in class. This is a 24 by 30, so it's taken a little longer to get this part done. But you're a true artist when you're doing this first layer and you actually like watching paint dry. I mean, that's the sign of you're weird enough to be a real artist. And I used to travel a lot for shows, and have slowed that down. That's one reason I went into teaching. I just traveling it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work and a lot of expense. And if you have a poor show, you don't just come out with zero. You come out with negative 2,000, or I'm sure some of you are very painfully aware of that. And you can't always depend on it. So I was getting a little older, so I started teaching, and it's probably one of the best open doors I ever walked through. It's been a lot of fun, and it's given me a lot more joy than I ever thought it would. Had never really considered it, but my background, I just painted when I was young, and was learning a lot of things, and just never quit. And one day realized, I've got some knowledge here. Maybe I could teach it. And so one thing led to another. Now I'm doing a little bit on YouTube. I don't know if that'll take off or not. We'll see. There's probably some things about that I need to be aware of as far as making it grow. But anyway, so we've got this layer on. A couple of things we accomplished. We just got rid of all the white canvas, except for the edges. I'll get those later. And we've got a little bit of atmosphere. We've got some underpainting, so 3 or 4 things. Some underpainting, which just layering, lots of layering leads to an interesting painting too. And if you have you look at a lot of paintings like a Monet or something, you look up close and there's a predominantly green field, and it's across the room. It's this nice, beautiful green field. You get up close to it, and there's all sorts of little bits and scraps of color in it, but it's predominantly, what you want it to be, and you don't have to stick to the traditional colors, but if you do, it's predominantly green or typically, field of wild grass and prairie grass, and you can, of course, add wild flowers, but just because something is predominantly one color doesn't mean you just can't throw in a lot of other bits and pieces of other color. And that, as you paint, you begin to realize you've got some power. You can add. You've got artistic license. You can add whatever you want to it. And so that's what I started. I started becoming a better artist, I think, years ago. I just started layering and trying some different things, and began to sell more, and realized maybe I could do this in some kind of a living. And that doesn't mean you have to make a living at it to be a great artist by any means. A lot of the greatest artists are just do it part-time and have other jobs, and but they're still fantastic artists. So doing it full-time is not necessarily a sign that you're some brilliant, way ahead artist of others. Some of the greatest ones have other talents and other jobs. So, but we're all in the same boat, though, aren't we? We love art, so there's no reason to look up or look down on other artists. We're all kind of trying to do the same thing and just really enjoy it, have fun. And so, as I ramble on, this is drawing. At this point, I want to start, again, our somewhat loose model. I want to start introducing some darks, and we work basically in opaque media. You work from dark to light. You start with some darks. I always just get some Hooker's green, and I'll add a little bit of black to it. And some of the dark greens, I'm putting in the shadows of the trees, what's inside the tree, where the light's not getting to. And along this barn here, when I'm first laying in some darks, these shadows aren't green, but they're dark, and it doesn't matter. Just any dark will do. So I just go ahead and use that dark green as I'm kind of outlining some of the shadows of the structures. So let me get a little bit smaller brush here, and something that has a little bit of a decent tip to it. Let's see. I don't know, this bigger one actually stays together a little better. And dropped once. Excuse me, keep having to bend down and pick up stuff. Okay, so now this is really too big, but it's worn down. It's got a small tip to it, so I can use that. at like a smaller brush. So green and a touch of Mars black. This is ivory, but Mars is a little more opaque. I kind of like Mars better, but I'll just use that. Ivory's handy, so I'll just use that. Mostly green, just a little touch of black. And I usually don't use anything pure black finish. Leave it pure black. It's just a little too strong. Draws the eye a little too much, like a black hole. And but I will mix it with, especially with greens, when I want some of my really darker colors. And now when I mix with a brush, I'll usually get a little too much paint on there for some small areas. So I've always got a wet rag and a dry rag. The wet one to kind of remove paint, the dry one to maybe take a little off, that brush. I don't want too much, because I like to dry brush blend the edges. That's another thing. This atmospheric style, everything has a bit of a soft edge to it, and dry brush blending is something, if you're not familiar, it's just not really dry. It's just very little paint and very little moisture, and you can get a softer edge. If you got a lot of paint that just blobs up and you have a hard edge, and we're wanting a softer edge. So we see a line of trees here, and so now you see with this texture medium I added, you see all these little things that are happening just naturally. It makes it a little easier. It's really good for trees, things that have rough little edges, little leaves, and so this texturing is really pretty nice. It doesn't. I don't do everything with that, but a regular canvas without it, you can get a little smoother. When you want something really super smooth, you can get a little smoother edges and softer edges with a smooth canvas. So there's reasons for both. Now here's some of this lifting, like as I let that dry just a bit, if I do it immediately, sometimes I take too much off, but you let it dry for a minute, and you kind of watch here. I'll take off the top ridges, and the underneath of the dark will stay, and you'll see. So yeah, it just reveals some interesting textures. And now we're going to come back and paint some more on that too. We're going to paint some lighter color here and there. But as you're going, doesn't mean you can't play with it. And some of these techniques where I'm just lifting, so I can grind that in a little deeper, the dark, really get it into the low points. You have to grind it in kind of like you're painting on masonry or something. I'll just do a little of that. And so you're getting all the surface, even the low points, painted with dark. And that's when you can come back in with this, lift a little, and the low points will stay very dark. High points will be light. It just creates, just watch, like say the light line of the grass here is going to be lighter than that shadow. So you can come in here and just, before it dries, so you can just reveal some of that texture. Anything of interest. It's a lot of people will look at that and it doesn't look like painted. It's something else. It's lifted. So you kind of just distinguish your paintings a little different than others. And sometimes I'll take too much off. You just put it back in. Acrylic is very forgiving. You can experiment with it, and if you don't like the experiment, you can just repaint that area. So anyway, I'm just adding some of these darks, and now we'll paint, besides the lifting, we'll come back and paint some lighter color on there too, but this is just something kind of playing along the way. And that's one reason I got a little bit away from more photorealistic. It just became work, and as I got older, I wanted to just enjoy the process again. So I began to do a little more impressionistic. So there's lots of ways to paint too. This is the way I do it. It's not the way to paint, but it's a nice way to paint. And if you like atmospheric, I kind of like minimalism, atmospheric pieces. And so anyway, I'm putting in these darks, just catching this horizon line, but I'm not ready to really pinpoint, like the very distinguished line across that light with the dark shadow. I'm still just letting things crash into each other, really just overlap, instead of trying to be real careful like a coloring book, and get it just to the edge. Now, there'll be times later when I will be a little more careful as I do put a little detail. You can see on the house, there's the edges are still soft. In fact, it's harder to keep those just a bit soft than it is to make a hard edge. You have to, dry brush it very carefully. But you get that feeling of distance, and so you see here, we've got this tree over here, and this is again, you can be very loose with it, as opposed to, say, make like a watercolor. I might be a little more careful where I put the dark. Now, I have seen some interesting things lately with watercolor where they just forget the rules of transparent watercolor, and they'll just bring some opaque watercolor and lighten it up. And first time I started seeing that, now I've always used with watercolor maybe a hint of some opaque, here and there, but this was just a lot of opaque, and I thought, hey, you can't do that. It's not transparent watercolor. But then I'm like, hey, artistic license, you can do that. And I was impressed with what I saw. So, you're always learning, seeing new things, being inspired by other artists and all the things they have figured out how to do, and okay, so do a little more, and then we'll probably getting close to 30 minutes now. I'll keep it at that. So you can see you're just, it's part of it, you're just throwing layers on there, and then you can get more careful later. Now everything's going about where I want it, but I could put some little shadow up under that eave, and see, at this point it's still pretty rough. I don't have to make it perfect yet. I will clean it up as I go with different layers, but right now I kind of want to keep it very loose, and I'm going to reduce the size of that door a little bit, at least for now. I don't know. Maybe not. I'll decide that later. Maybe there's a... We'll make this kind of the shadow side and get the little bit of sun on that face. And so, and again, for now, I'm just using some of this dark green. Just any dark will do at the start. And so I'll just continue on here for a minute. I'll show you what we'll do more of next segment. I don't know how often I'm going to do these. I'm going to try to make a commitment to do, more, and try to develop a channel. Maybe we're all, especially nowadays with inflation, we're all developing side gigs, aren't we? Nowadays of something just to try to afford paint, if anything else. And sales are fair, but they're people are tight right now. They're careful with their money. So I thought I'd try this so you can help me out. Real simple, won't cost anything. You can what do they call it? Like, share, and subscribe. And you want to do that, I'll guarantee you I can teach you a lot of interesting techniques. Some of them, if you're an experienced artist, you'll know some of these. Maybe some will be somewhat new to you. If you're new, I think you'll like me. I really try to explain things and give you a reason. It's one thing when I was in school, I was one of those, I wanted to know why, and some teachers didn't take kindly to too many questions. So I try to head that off, try to explain. So anyway, we're putting in dark right now. That's going to be an underpainting. Now, it can stay very dark if you're doing more of a silhouette, like a sundown. You can kind of keep it dark to keep that silhouette. But I never like just a pure black silhouette. I think those are... now, I've seen some nice paintings, so if you do it that way, forgive me, I'm not cutting you down. But I like to cheat, a little artistic license, even a pure silhouette, what's backlit. I like to put a little bit of light color on the front, not too much, keep it dark. Just because I want some light in there, even if there's no light wrapping around and hitting it. So I'll do, I'll just stop there. That's probably 30 minutes, maybe in the ballpark. So next week we'll finish this foreground. We'll start putting in some little bit of light on top of this. We'll kind of work on this barn, and then we'll get more into the sky. And like I said, I don't like to go too fast. I like to keep it slow. And if you want to paint along, maybe I'll go slow enough where you can do that. And one thing you can do is get a little bit smaller canvas, and it's easier to follow someone. And when you're following someone, if I was following someone that I didn't know which way they were going to go, it would take me a while to keep up. I would have problems. So maybe a little smaller, maybe a 12 by 16 or 11 by 14 or 16 by 20 would be easier to kind of paint along. You're welcome to do that. So anyway, that's it from Stott's Fine Art here from the World Stott's Fine Art headquarters in my studio. And I will see you later. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll do some more of this in the next day or two. So thanks. Bye-bye.